When the Greeks spoke of heroes, their tales rarely began in happiness. So it was with Heracles, the son of Zeus, the thunderer, and the mortal woman Alcmene, born not merely as a man, but as a reminder that even the gods play with the destinies of mortals. Zeus had decreed that this child would become the savior of the world from monsters and chaos. Yet his wife, Hera, jealous and unyielding, hated the infant from the moment he was born. For Heracles was living proof of Zeus's betrayal. From that day forth, the goddess swore to make the life of Alcmene's son a chain of endless trials. She sent 2 serpents into his cradle. But the child, gifted with strength that even a titan might envy, crushed them with his bare hands. And yet the fate of a hero, even the strongest, rarely belongs to him alone. Heracles grew up in Thebes, famed as a warrior and protector of men. He knew joy. He had a wife, Megara, and children he loved dearly. But Hera had not forgotten him. When her time came, she cast madness upon him. In that madness, he no longer recognized his loved ones, and by the will of the cruel goddess, he killed those he cherished more than life itself. When the madness passed and reason returned, horror seized him. Neither his strength nor his divine lineage could bring peace to his soul. To atone for his crime, he went to the oracle of Delphi. The verdict was stern. He must serve for 12 years a weak and cowardly king, Eurystheus of Mycenae, and obey his every command. Thus began the path that would forever engrave the name of Heracles into the history of humankind. The first labor, the Nemean lion. After the harsh sentence of the oracle, Heracles set out to serve Eurystheus, a man he could have crushed with a single blow, but to whom he was now bound as a servant. The first trial the cunning king devised was to slay the Nemean lion, a beast whispered of in terror throughout the Peloponnese. This creature was no mere lion. It was said to have been born of Typhon and Echidna, monsters of the ancient world. Its hide was impervious to arrows or spears, and its roar could shake the mountains. The people of Nemea lived in constant fear. None who hunted the beast ever returned. Eurystheus knew well he was sending Heracles to certain death. Heracles took only his bow, his sword, and a great club carved from olive wood. He journeyed through hills and forests until he found the tracks, deep impressions, as if stone paws had pressed into the earth. The day waned. The air was heavy with the scent of blood. Heracles knew he was near. He loosed an arrow, but it bounced away as if from bronze. The lion only grew enraged. Then Heracles cast aside his weapons and faced the beast head-on into the cave where echoes rolled like thunder. Darkness surrounded him. The lion sprang from the shadows, striking with the weight of a boulder. Heracles staggered but did not fall. He seized the monster with his bare hands, and the struggle began, furious, wordless, in clouds of dust and the rumble of growls. He could not pierce the hide, but he could strangle. His fingers closed around the beast's neck. Its roar faded to a rasp and then to silence. Heracles stood in the cave, breathing heavily. Sweat and blood mingled on his skin. He had triumphed, but no knife could cut the hide. Then Athena, his divine guardian, whispered counsel. Use the creature's own claws. Following her advice, Heracles skinned the beast and draped the pelt over his shoulders. From that day, the lion's hide became his armor and his symbol, the mark of one who could conquer the invincible. When he returned to Eurystheus, the king grew pale with fear. Terrified of the hero, he decreed that henceforth Heracles should bring proofs of his labors not in person, but leave them at the city gates. Eurystheus realized that the man he had sought to humiliate was becoming legend. The second labor, the Lenaean Hydra. No rest awaited Heracles after his triumph over the lion. Eurystheus, still trembling from the sight of the hero, devised a new task, even more perilous, even more impossible. he ordered Heracles to slay the Lernaean Hydra, a serpent-born terror that dwelled in the marshes of Lerna, near the ancient city of Argos. This creature, it was said, had been raised by Hera herself, a gift of vengeance. Its body writhed with 9 venomous heads, and in the darkness of the swamps, its breath alone could kill a man. Worse still, when one head was severed, 2 more would grow in its place. No mortal weapon could prevail against such horror. Heracles set forth once again, accompanied this time by his young nephew, Iolaus, who drove his chariot. When they reached the swamp, a heavy mist hung over the land, and the stench of decay filled the air. Reeds rustled like whispers of the dead. From the black waters rose the sound of hissing, 100 serpents speaking as one. The Hydra emerged, immense and glistening with slime, its heads weaving through the air, eyes gleaming like molten bronze. Heracles loosed arrows to draw it out from its den, then waded forward into the mire, club in hand. The battle began. He struck, and one head flew from its neck. But at once, 2 sprouted anew, dripping venom. Soon, a writhing tangle surrounded him, and the creature's coils sought to crush him. Heracles fought on, his blows echoing through the marsh. But even his strength could not stem the Hydra's regeneration. Hera herself sent a giant crab to attack him from below, its claws snapping at his feet. Then Heracles called to Iolaus for aid. The youth, swift and clever, brought fire, and with a burning torch, he seared each neck as it was severed, cauterizing the wounds before the heads could return. Smoke and the stench of burning flesh filled the air. The Hydra thrashed in agony, its screeches shattering the silence of the swamp. At last, only the immortal head remained, the one that could not die. Heracles seized his great sword and struck it down, then buried it deep beneath a heavy boulder, imprisoning it for eternity. When all was done, he dipped his arrows in the Hydra's blood, for it was said to be the deadliest poison in existence. Thus, the weapons of Heracles became instruments of divine destruction. When he returned to Eurystheus, the cowardly king refused to count this labor as valid, claiming that Heracles had received help. But the hero said nothing. He merely turned his gaze to the horizon, for his path was not yet finished. The name of Heracles was already echoing across Greece, whispered by those who both feared and revered him. The third labor. The Ceryneian Hind. After the stench of the Lernaean swamp, Eurystheus sought a task that would humble Heracles not through danger, but through patience, a torment of endurance rather than of strength. He commanded him to capture alive the Ceryneian hind, sacred to Artemis, goddess of the hunt and protector of wild creatures. This was no common deer. The hind was said to be larger than a bull, its coat gleaming like polished gold, and its antlers shining like pure silver. It roamed the forests of Ceryneia, swift as the north wind, untouchable by mortal hand. To harm or kill it would mean invoking the wrath of Artemis herself, a punishment even Zeus might fear. Heracles accepted the task in silence. He set out at dawn, carrying no weapons save his bow and a net of fine cord. For a year and a day he followed the creature, through forests and mountains, across rivers and plains, always catching a glimpse of golden light disappearing between the trees, never close enough to seize. Through snow and burning sun he pursued her. The hind seemed a living symbol of the divine, untiring, elusive, and pure. Many times Heracles wondered whether the goddess herself led him on, testing his resolve rather than his might. At last, at the foot of Mount Artemisium, he found his chance. The hind came to drink from a clear spring at twilight, the air filled with the scent of pine and the hum of unseen insects. Heracles lay in wait, his body motionless as stone. When the creature bent its neck to the water, he loosed a single arrow, not to kill, but to wound lightly, striking between sinew and bone. The hind stumbled, and in that instant Heracles leapt forth, casting his net. The struggle was fierce. The deer kicked and fought, her golden eyes flashing with terror. But the hero held fast, binding her legs with soft cords so as not to harm her. He spoke aloud, raising his eyes to the forest canopy. "Artemis, virgin huntress, forgive me. I do not seek your wrath, only to fulfill the command laid upon me." And Artemis, hearing his plea, descended in a shimmer of moonlight. Her silver bow glowed in her hands, her face serene yet filled with divine authority. "You would dare touch that which is sacred to me?" she asked. Heracles bowed his head. "I serve not my will, but fate," he replied. "My penance binds me to the commands of a mortal king." For a long moment the goddess regarded him in silence. Then, with a voice like wind through pines, she said, "Go, son of Zeus. Deliver my hind, but cause her no harm. When your mortal debt is paid, you shall release her to the wild once more." Heracles thanked her and bore the creature gently upon his shoulders. When he returned to Eurystheus, the king once again cowered behind the gates, marveling at the shimmering beast. But true to his word, Heracles later released the hind back into the forests, untouched, her golden form vanishing into the mists of dawn. The fourth labour, the Erymanthian boar. The fame of Heracles had spread across all of Greece, and with it, the envy of Eurystheus only deepened. Unable to bear the glory of the hero he sought to humiliate, the king devised another cruel command. He ordered Heracles to capture alive the Erymanthian boar, a beast of monstrous size that dwelled upon the slopes of Mount Erymanthus in Arcadia. This creature ravaged villages and fields, uprooted trees with its tusks, and gored any man who dared approach. Its roar echoed across the valleys like thunder, and snow melted where its breath struck the ground. Thus, once more, Heracles set forth. As he journeyed, he came upon the dwelling of Pholus, a wise and kind centaur who welcomed him with hospitality. Pholus offered roasted meat and wine from the jars of Dionysus himself, but when Heracles unsealed the sacred vessel, its fragrance drew other centaurs from the mountains. They came in fury, armed with stones and pine trunks, in rage that mortal hands had touched divine wine. A battle broke out. Heracles fought fiercely, his poisoned arrows scattering death among them. Yet the struggle brought grief, for Chiron, the immortal centaur and teacher of heroes, came to quell the fight and was struck accidentally by one of the arrows. The venom of the Hydra coursed through his immortal flesh, bringing agony that even a god could not endure. Chiron, unable to die, chose to surrender his immortality so that Prometheus might be freed, and thus one hero's pain became another's salvation. Grieving, Heracles buried Pholus with honour and continued his journey toward Erymanthus. Snow now blanketed the peaks, and the wind howled like a living thing. There, in the frozen mists, he found the tracks of the monstrous boar, gouges deep as wounds in the earth. Heracles pursued it up the mountain, his breath freezing in the air. When the beast appeared, it was as if the mountain itself had risen, tusks gleaming, eyes red with fury. The ground trembled beneath its charge, but Heracles, nimble despite his strength, sidestepped and drove it toward a ravine where the snow lay deep and soft. The boar stumbled, sinking into the drifts. Before it could free itself, Heracles leapt upon its back, seized it by the tusks, and bound it with chains forged of bronze. He descended the mountain carrying the living monster on his shoulders, its hooves thrashing, its roars shaking the sky. When Eurystheus beheld the sight, terror seized him. He leapt into a great bronze jar to hide and called out from within, "Enough! Enough! Take it away, son of Zeus, and do not return until you are summoned again." Thus Heracles stood before the people, his breath like steam, his muscles bathed in frost, the image of the unconquerable man. The Erymanthian boar had fallen, and with it, Another symbol of chaos had been tamed. Yet even in triumph, Heracles knew that his road of atonement stretched long before him. For every victory drew him nearer to redemption, but also nearer to the designs of Hera, who still watched from Olympus, her vengeance not yet satisfied. The fifth labour, the Augean stables. After his encounter with the Erymanthian boar, Heracles returned to Mycenae, weary, scarred, but alive. King Eurystheus greeted him not with joy, but with a contemptuous smile. "If you can defeat monsters," he said, "let's see if you can handle filth." Thus he sent the hero on a labour that, at first glance, seemed unworthy of his strength, to clean the stables of King Augeas. Augeas, king of Elis, was renowned for his wealth. His herds were enormous, numbering thousands of bulls and horses, gifts from Helios himself. But for decades, no one had cleaned their stalls. Manure had piled up into mountains, the air had become unbearable, and the surrounding land was soaked with rot. No servant or herdsman dared step inside. It was a place where a man could suffocate before even crossing the threshold. Yet Heracles went there without hesitation. When he arrived at Augeas's palace, he was met by the old king, cunning, with eyes like bronze and a smile hiding contempt. "They say you are the son of Zeus," he said, "but I believe neither in gods nor heroes. If you can clean my stables in a single day, I will give you 1/10 of my cattle." Heracles accepted the challenge. Eurystheus sought to humiliate him with dirty work, and Augeas sought to deceive him. But the hero knew that strength is needed not only in muscles. He surveyed the stables, and a plan quickly formed. Heracles went out to the river, and where its streams diverged, he uprooted enormous stones, changing the course of 2 rivers, Alpheus and Peneus. The waters surged forward, roaring and foaming, rushing into the stables and washing away the hardened layers of filth, as if time itself had cleansed decades of human laziness. By evening, Augeas's palace gleamed with cleanliness, and the air was once again clear. When Heracles came for his reward, Augeas denied his promise. "It was not you, but the rivers," he said. "Therefore, the reward is not owed to you." Heracles looked at him silently and left. He did not seek revenge, not yet. But in his heart, a new feeling was kindled. Not anger, but contempt for human deceit. He understood that his trials were not just a struggle with monsters, but with human baseness, with cunning more fearsome than fangs or poison. When he returned to Eurystheus, the king again tried to humiliate him. "This labor does not count," he said. "You received a reward, even if you did not receive it." But Heracles' name was already resounding across Greece. Even those who hated him recognized. He was the first to show that a mind directed toward good could cleanse any filth, even that which has accumulated for centuries. The sixth labor, the Stymphalian birds. After Heracles had cleaned the Augean stables, all of Hellas spoke of him as a man capable of purifying the very earth, not only from monsters, but from human corruption. Yet Eurystheus could not tolerate the hero's fame. He sought challenges that would break even the son of Zeus. Thus, a new task arose. "In the land of Arcadia, by Lake Stymphalus," said Eurystheus, "dwell monstrous birds, offspring of Ares, the god of war. They feed on human flesh, their beaks are made of bronze, their feathers sharp as arrows, and their cries can drive men insane. Drive them away if you can." Heracles set out on his journey. Lake Stymphalus lay amidst swamps, shrouded in mist like the breath of death. There were no songs of men or beasts, only the rustle of wings and a hoarse cawing. The shores were littered with bones. He approached, and the sky suddenly came alive. Thousands of creatures rose, blotting out the sun. They rained down upon him a hail of metal feathers, sharp as arrows. Heracles shielded himself with the lion's skin, but he realized that shooting at the sky was useless. He could not even see where to aim. Then he stopped and lifted his eyes to Olympus, and perhaps for the first time in a long while, he asked for help. Athena, protector of heroes, heard his plea. She descended from the heavens in a glow of bronze and handed him the castanets of Hephaestus, 2 bronze clappers, forged by the godsmith. "Let your strength resonate not only in your hands," she said, "but also in the sound that drives away chaos." Heracles climbed to the top of a hill by the lake, raised the clappers, and a roar thundered forth, louder than any storm. The sound, sharp and piercing, cut through the air. The birds panicked, colliding with each other, losing their formation. Then Heracles drew his bow, and his arrows, dipped in the hydra's venom, struck one by one with unerring precision. When the sky cleared, silence reigned over the lake. The water became clear once more. The wind whispered through the reeds, and for the first time in many years, the sun touched the shore. He gathered the feathers of the fallen birds, gleaming and cold, and offered them to Athena as a gift. Later, they were embedded in arrows, as a reminder that even chaos that tears through the sky can be subdued with sound, will, and intellect. When Heracles returned, Eurystheus, as always, tried to belittle the labor. "So, once again, the gods helped you," he sneered. But Heracles answered calmly, "The gods help those who rise to fight on their own." Thus ended the 6th labor of Heracles, a victory over the fear that dwells in the sky, over threats that fall from above like judgment. If in the earlier labors the hero purified the earth and the waters, now he purified the very air and sky, freeing humanity from fear of that which they cannot control. This concludes the first part of the story of the 12 labors of Heracles. Stay tuned for the remaining labors in the second video. Thank you for watching this video until the end. If you enjoyed it, please support the channel. Give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss new videos.